Look at the sun going down, autumn leaves falling down. Game of Thrones, winter is calling now. This cold might freeze my heart. Tell me if gonna be there by my side when the snow fall around ever cold. Nobody else but you, you boo boo. Nobody else but you, you boo boo. Nobody else but you, you boo boo. I'm off to your door, and I'm knocking at your heart. Too much gold in me. I feel too much gold in me. I feel too much gold in me. I'm halfway to your door, and I'm knocking at your heart. I feel too much gold in me. I feel too much gold in me. I feel too much golden we I'm over to your door, and I'm knocking at your heart. I'll never ever call somebody, cause somebody calls somebody else. But you, I call somebody. I'll never ever call somebody else. Call somebody around, ever call somebody else but you. Call somebody around, ever call somebody. Call somebody, call somebody, call somebody else but you. Call somebody, call somebody, call somebody else but you. Call somebody around, ever call somebody else but you. Call somebody round ever comes somebody else. There is love hidden in your heart. I keep it steady, there are plenty things to like. Don't feel angry about yourself when you feel down. There is light in your heart, just keep it bent, cause we were born to love. Oh, we were born to love. Oh, we were born to love. Oh, we were born to love. We were born to love. Love. Oh, we were born to love. Oh, we were born to love. Oh, we were born to love. We were born to love. Oh, love, 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 love. Oh, love, 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 love. In the morning, greet your neighbor with a smile. I make the world go round and round and feel alright. I sing these songs of liberation, light up the world. There's a fire in your heart, just keep it bent, cause we were born to love. We were born to love. Yeah, we were born to love. Oh, we were born to love. We were born to love. Oh, love. Oh, we were born to love. Oh, we were born to love. Oh, we were born to
Welcome everybody, and welcome everybody online. It's good to be here for the August Heavy Chef event. Thank you for those brave souls who've actually come out and braved the Joburg traffic to be here. And those of you who've been waiting online, welcome. Ola. I am Fred Rode. I'm the CEO of Heavy Chef. And we have so we've got some guests coming along. Hi guys, welcome. Make yourselves comfortable. So the Joburg traffic does tend to vary. So we will have a few distractions along the way with people coming in during the event. So apologies for that. Obviously, those of you sitting at home don't have to worry about that. So just a quick introduction to Heavy Chef. Those of you who don't know Heavy Chef, by the way, just so you know, I can't see anybody because there's this huge freaking light. So if I look a little bit dazed and confused, that's because I'm not Kim Kardashian or Beyonce, who's used to this kind of light. But I just want to give everybody a quick précis of what Heavy Chef is about. Heavy Chef is essentially a learning platform for entrepreneurs. Our core belief is that entrepreneurs can change the world for the better. We believe that there's a huge amount of challenges in our society, in the South African environment, and the most efficient and the most powerful way to change the status quo is the entrepreneur sector. So what we want to do, what Heavy Chef wants to do, is to inspire people to start businesses and then empower them to grow and to succeed and to scale. So what we do essentially is we've created a learning platform with learning bites, these little tiny bites of knowledge, where we get so-called heavy chefs, people who eat their own food, people who are in the trenches, who roll up their sleeves, who get stuck in, who are heavy chefs, who are people who can speak with authority on the various topics, the salient topics that are important to entrepreneurs. So tonight we've got two heavy chefs. They're actually quite skinny, but nonetheless, in terms of the metaphorical sense of the term, they are very authoritative voices within e-commerce. So we're hugely grateful to Warrick from Insaka E-commerce Academy and Nalisa Pillay from Kudu to come and join us, and we'll open it up to questions shortly. I just want to do a short shout out to some very important people. So we have a group of partners that have supported us from the beginning, and most specifically, I just want to honor Payfast and Zero, who've really come on board and who are aligned with this vision of inspiring and empowering entrepreneurs, as well as Workshop 17, this beautiful venue that we have tonight, and our partners Ex Nilo and Whipping the Cat, the legal services company, our beverage sponsors outside. So some of you are enjoying the fruits of the Cape, where I'm from, Baxberg Wine, long-term partner of Heavy Chef. So Fruit, the Baker Brothers, a family-owned business that's just growing like gangbusters across Southern Africa. Good Leaf CBD water. I see some of you have those as well. Don't worry, it's not going to get you high. It'll make you a little bit chilled, but it's kind of what we want in today's climate. And then we also have, we've got a Grumpy snacks. So some of you are enjoying the little chickpea snacks that are laid out on the table there. Those are actually two entrepreneurs from our community. Shout out to Kate and Tim, who might be patching in tonight. Just an amazing duo who've created such an amazing company, Grumpy Snacks. So please do support them and enjoy the fruits of their labor outside there. A huge shout out to Black Maverick, not Black Magic, as I said last the last event, but Massimo Paul and the crew who twiddling the knobs back in the back, and and just ensuring that we've got rock solid technology on the go. Big up to Justin as well, our trusty videographer who we've got such a long-term partnership with. He just does a great job. And then also, just lastly from me, a huge thank you to the Heavy Chef team who are spread across the world. Bronwyn's actually patching in from Canada at the moment. So, Ola, I think it's about 3 o'clock in the morning over there. No, it's actually, I think it's about 8 o'clock in the morning. And we have Juja and Siabonga and Randall. We've got Louis. We've actually got some crew in the house here tonight, and Mo over there, and a couple other folks strewn across South Africa who are just doing an amazing job of updating this incredible vision of ours, this learning platform. And then I think just a quick note to remind us that August, this month, is Women's Month. So one of the things that we have had as a prevailing theme over the last 4 weeks is that we need to support and honor our sisters who are also in the trenches with us, who are also taking bullets and also fighting the good fight and rolling up their sleeves and getting stuck in these trenches, really building businesses and building our economy. So just a big up to those of you who are building your companies, and we've been featuring many women entrepreneurs on our platform. We have a few of you tonight, and so just respect and honor to you. We have, clearly a challenge in this country where we have, I believe it's 1 in 5 businesses are women-owned, women-founded businesses. This is a clear problem. If you think about the fact that the economy is made up of 60 million souls in this country, and half of them are women. I think that's a really important, it's a really important message for us to take on board, that we've got work to do. So I think I don't want to get too much on a soapbox, but just to remind ourselves of that, a big shout out to Zero and Workshop 17 who have come on board with us this month. We've been putting out quite a bit of communication over the past week or so about the fact that we have gifted 249 women entrepreneurs on the Faithful to Nature platform, who we've partnered with to give them a year's subscription, a membership to Heavy Chef, to the learning platform, and we're going to be working with those 249 women entrepreneurs, and really just seeing how we can build and grow upon this, I think, a very kind of low base, and make it into something equitable it's going to make a difference to our economy and to our lives. So without further ado, I'm pretty sure there's a few things else that I could have said, but I've forgotten it. So I just want to thank you guys for being here. Thank you everybody for joining us online, and thank you to our 2 speakers tonight who are going to be grilling about Heavy Chef. Don't look so nervous, Nalisa. Nalisa told us that she was a little bit nervous before tonight, so it's all good. I think we're going to have a few questions. We're going to have a conversation. It's going to be super fun. Please do start ruminating over the things that are salient to yourselves. What are you struggling with? What are you thinking about in the online retail space? Are there any questions that you'd like to ask of our 2 heavy chefs here tonight? And then you'll have a chance. You'll have a chance to ask your questions during the course of the evening. So a quick note that we do have a little bag somewhere around here. I don't know where it is. It's just behind here. It is a Heavy Chef hamper that is packed full of goodness. It has a bottle of Baxberg wine that I mentioned earlier. And so it's got a couple of books, Heavy Chef books, and that hamper is going to go to somebody at the end of this evening for the best question, the most thoughtful and an insightful question for our 2 guests here tonight, and that goes for the online audience as well. So please do ask your questions on YouTube in the comments, and our team will be taking those questions and will be sending them through to me via WhatsApp. So I have a little bit of a challenging job, and I'm going to make just a little bit of a disclaimer here tonight that I'm going to be sitting in that chair over there with my phone, and every now and then looking at WhatsApp, it's not because I'm bored, it's because I'm getting messages from my team and telling me what's happening from you guys online. So, so bring those questions in, and we'll announce the prize at the end of the evening. Can we please welcome our two guests onto stage with a rousing hand of applause. Welcome, Warrick and Nalisa. It's good to have you on board. I want to start, while I get my notes on my phone, I want to start with a fairly simple question. And I want to try and identify the origin of your passion for e-commerce. And when did you actually really become infected with the bug of e-commerce? When did you really find this interesting? And Nalisa, let's start with you.
I think for me, it's slightly different. I started my career in human resources and psychology. And the business required us to look at an e-commerce platform to sell directly to our customers. And at that point in time, I was identified as the person to do the investigation into e-commerce and what it's all about and how we could explore that avenue. And that's when I met Warrick as well. And
the strapping gentleman in your right, yes.
And that's where my passion grew for it, where you just learn more and more every day on e-commerce because it's changing all the time. And then that's how it grew. Got you.
And Warrick, what about you?
It's a bit of a funny one, but I stumbled my way into e-commerce when I was in the UK. I'd flown across there with my girlfriend, my now wife, and we had gone there to work overseas like many people do. But we got there and I couldn't get a job, and I needed to pay my rent. So I was just going to any job interview that I could. And this company that was opening up a position, they were an online business. And I went for this job interview and I needed a job. I needed to pay my rent. And they asked me how much I knew about e-commerce, and I was like, no, I know everything. And I got the job. They knew that I was lying that day.
So you lied, basically.
I did, 100%.
It started with a lie. You heard it here first.
And they caught me out pretty quickly because on day one, they could see I was typing like that. Didn't know how to type. So that's where I got into e-commerce. But then my passion quickly grew as I saw the success of that business just exploding across Europe. And the whole time I was looking back at South Africa, and I was always going to come back home. And I could see the growth of e-commerce there and the products we were selling. And the competition back home was very little. So after a couple of years there, I was teed up to move back home because I could see how it was working. I learned from their success. I also won a business award for London's Young Businessman of the Year in 2009. And that then kind of gave me the confidence to come back and start my own e-commerce store. The real problem was that between London and Joburg, I had gone backpacking with my girlfriend, and we just blew all of our cash. So I got back here wanting to start a business, had to ask my parents if I could move back in with them, and started from their spare bedroom with a few $1,000 and kind of started selling stuff online, trying to get a few sales, and built that up quickly to a business that kind of grew and just became a monster all on its own.
It was a good exit for you, though, as well, was it not? Can you give us a bit of a sense of what the product was and when you exited, just so we can have an idea of the timelines?
Sure. So the company that I stumbled into in London was this company selling helmet cameras, and this was like as GoPro had been invented, but it wasn't even in Europe yet. And we were making these camera kits by literally taking CCTV bullet cams and then wiring it into a battery and giving it to snowboarders, so that they could film their stuff, and they didn't even know what they were filming until later when they got home. And then GoPro came out and it just exploded, and the company I was with, we were selling it across Europe. And so when I got back, along with that little backpacking trip through America, I also had a handshake deal with Nick Woodman, the founder of GoPro, that I would be his guy for Africa. So I was the first person in the country in Africa selling GoPros, which was a good product to be selling. And yeah, so that kind of led to the growth, and I definitely rode on the success of them, but also learned some important lessons around which products sell, like what's going to be a big seller, and later use that same the same lessons to identify drones. So we were the first people in Africa selling drones, and that worked out pretty well too. And it was 2017 when I sold that business, and at the time we were doing 22 million rand annual revenue ex VAT, and it was a good exit. But the thing that kind of fueled my passion for e-commerce was when I had returned from England and was trying to start my own online store. I was trying to just figure out which payment gateways to use, which couriers to partner with, who can I trust, who's going to work, who's going to let me down. And I didn't have anybody who I could ask questions to or who could support me on that. And the only way I could figure it out was by trial and error. Try a payment gateway for 6 months, and then they let me down enough times for me to can it, and then try another one. And fast forward to 2017 when I exited that business, people were coming to me and they'd seen my success and they were asking me okay, Warrick, which payment gateway can I use? Which couriers can I trust? Who's going to let me down? And I realized that there was still, after all that time, there was no education, no community, no support. And so that was what kind of inspired me to start the Insaka e-commerce academy, where we've created the tools, the community, the support, the resources, and the mentorship to avoid people having to just make all those same mistakes that I had to make, and give them the support that just everything that I wish I had when I was starting out.
What's extraordinary to me is that although you're in very different positions, I mean, you're now coaching people how to do e-commerce right, and you've kind of become the de facto e-commerce guy in the country, which is amazing. But you're in it, right? So you're now taking the same journey, and there's a similarity in terms of the trajectory that you're on, because Nalisa, I mean, you've also happened to be on a path that is just flying at the moment, and Kudu is just such an extraordinary story. We're going to get to that story in a short while, but before we do, I want to ask you, and maybe this is, it's a bit of a left field question. Don't be nervous. I want to ask, what are the most challenging aspects, do you think, in terms of the e-commerce ecosystem? I'm actually going to ask you to also contribute after Nalisa has said that. What do you find the most challenging about e-commerce at the moment?
In terms of the changes, even challenges changes all the time. So it doesn't stay the same forever. So I think for now, right now in our business, it's Korea, and I think a lot of people are experiencing that now, especially with the increase in fuel prices and stuff. That's become a challenge in terms of getting product to customers at the best possible price. That doesn't affect us and our margins as well. So that's a bit of a challenge now. And what we've done is we've partnered with Pago recently. So that makes it easier where you take the product to different points where the customer can pick it up. It is a cheaper option, and that's how we try to overcome that. But the other massive challenge is keeping your product relevant and fresh. Because if you want that returning customer, and if you're not doing a subscription, you need to make sure they come back for something new. So it's always looking at new products, what's in the market, what are people interested in, and trying to get that on the site. That's also brand loyal, because we focus on brands and make sure we get the right brands on board as well. Yeah. So that's quite a challenge as well.
And Warrick, from your side, tapping into all the entrepreneurs that you serve at Insaka, I mean, what do you find that people are finding the most challenging?
Well, I think, like Nalisa said, it changes as you go. And often I explain to people that the challenges don't go away, they just change. So when you're starting out, the challenges that people have to overcome is finding a product, like finding a good brand, something that's going to sell, something where a supplier is actually willing to work with you, products that have good margins, products that you can actually get your hands on. Then once you've got that, it's about building your website or getting somebody to do it for you if you want to go that route. And then after that, it's about getting traffic to your website. And I often use the analogy like a computer game. Don't judge, but I used to play like Mario Brothers. And,
so did I.
And on level 1, it's like the challenges are little, but you're still figuring out the game. So you got to hop over the thing, you got to jump over the guy, you got to beat the main enemy at the end to advance to level 2. Level 2, it's a bit more tricky. You got to jump higher, run faster, dodge more things. Then you got a bigger baddie to beat, and then you can advance to level 3, and then level 4, level 5, level 6. And so people often have this misconception that whatever challenge you're facing right now, like when you get past that challenge, it's going to be smooth sailing. And that's not the truth at all, because business is this continuing game where as you advance and as you learn to overcome one challenge, you're just up leveling yourself to be able to tackle the next challenge. And so there isn't this fancy golden pot at the end of the rainbow until you sell out or something like that. Or you build a big enough team that you can sit on the beach with your laptop on your lap. But most of the time, it's about knowing that the challenge that you're facing right now is temporary, you're going to get past it, and then there's going to be another one.
Be prepared for the next one.
Yeah, And I think, I mean, that's the thing. It's right. I mean, part of what Heavy Chef is about is really, I mean, even on our learning platform, we talk about the pedagogical triangle of learn, do, and share, right? So you learn, you know, either from YouTube or from Heavy Chef video or from Insaka or whatnot. The only way to really instill it and take it on board is to do it, to apply it, to actually put it into your business and observe how those various tactics and techniques actually work, and then you share that with your team, and you know, back to the feedback loop kind of continues, right? And so it's really important in terms of, I mean, so many of us are so nervous about getting started, but it's actually the getting started that's the thing that's you're going to learn the most from. You know, you can do an Insaka course, you can do Heavy Chef, you can do anything. But it's really the doing wherein you start to understand the challenges properly from a visceral perspective, right? And you can start to iterate. So, I mean, with that in mind, there's a few questions from the audience, but I think just in terms of, let's talk about the initial process. And Nalisa, I mean, I remember on your recipe on heavychef.com, it blew me away. It was so fascinating that you and a few colleagues, you basically decided, you know what, screw this. We're going to just do this ourselves. And you guys managed to pull together resources. And obviously you got the help from Warrick and the Insaka Academy and so on. But can you talk to us about that process, the origin story of Kudu and how that got off, what the platform is like, and maybe that sort of initial phase and what that was like for you?
Yeah, just to give you some background in terms of why we started it first. So we are the sole distributors for PlayStation in SA, and we would sell through retail predominantly. And we found that in retail, there wasn't a focus on gaming per se, so we would have a space in retail, and they wouldn't merchandise properly, they wouldn't take the back catalog. And then as newer products came into stores, our space kept shrinking. And so we thought, okay, but there's so much still to offer to our customers that retail doesn't want to do, so let's start our own platform to go directly to the consumer. And the decision we had to make is, do we go online or do we open up retail stores? So that was the first decision we had to make. And for us, because it was us testing it and trying it out, we didn't know much about retail and going directly to consumer. We said, okay, let's try an e-commerce platform first, and then let's see how it grows and then branch out. And for us, we didn't want to invest a lot of money immediately because it was more of a test and trial. And so we looked at different platforms like your Magento and actually going to companies that build websites, and the cost was enormous. And we're like, okay, that's just not going to make sense for us. And I obviously met Warrick through one of our colleagues, and he introduced us to a platform called Shopify, which is really easy to do. Once you've gone through the training, it literally took us 6 weeks, and we had our website up and running. And I think people tend to procrastinate on that building a website. They want it perfect, and they want every process to be in place. And it takes time to build it. You can't have everything perfect at go, but take that giant leap, start it, test it, and see how it works. Because the hardest part wasn't building the website. The hardest part was getting customers to trust us and buy from us. That was the hard part. Building the website was the easiest. And I think for us, in terms of that journey, it was being quick at decision making, not afraid to make those decisions. And that's what worked for us when we started.
I think it's so amazing to me that, first of all, there's quite an interesting pattern that's emerged between the two of you. You both had a product, essentially PlayStation and GoPro, that was in a sense, it was in a trajectory that was just fast growing, right? Yours is, a product that's fairly mature, but it was being rebirthed, and there's this new version of that product that just exploded. And yours at the infancy of its journey, and certainly into Africa. And having the right product is something that I'd like to get back to in time. I mean, by the way, just a quick side note or side story. I remember when I used to run a digital agency. I remember back in the day when we started building e-commerce sites, I read a story in a blog about some lady, it was back in the 2000s, that had a successful e-commerce store selling tumbleweed. And you can look this up. This lady was like a grandma or something, and she did a course not unlike Insaka, where she was like, hey, I'm going to do something. And she did this course, and they said you can choose any product that you want. And her product was tumbleweed. So she was from some kind of dusty town in the Bible Belt of the United States. And she was doing like hundreds of thousands of dollars by the time this thing, because it just blew up, this novelty store of some grandma selling tumbleweed. So we're going to get back to the product side of things. I think what I want to talk to you, Warrick, about the different platforms and I suppose the choices, the variety of choices. Nalisa spoke about Magento, and there's obviously, there's a few others, WooCommerce and so on and so forth. Can you talk to us about this sort of, maybe the continuum that you have to consider of all of those choices, from like really easy to super difficult? Just a crash course.
Yeah, I'll happily talk about this, because there's so much confusion in the market around which one you should be picking, especially for somebody new. Like you go online, and as soon as you start searching for any of these brands, then all the other brands start retargeting you. And it becomes quite confusing about which one you should pick. And for somebody who's new to e-commerce, they're looking for two main things. They're looking for whether a website allows them to put their products on the site and whether they can take payment on that site. Those are the two main criteria that you're looking, those are the two big boxes. But all of them can do that. And there's actually over 300 e-commerce platforms that actively advertise themselves as being perfect for the South African market. But that's not where it ends. Like just putting your product and being able to take payment, all of them can do that. And there's so much more that you actually need to consider from the beginning. For instance, like what support they have locally, whether that is support from their company or from the community of people who actually understand the platform. Another very important thing is the integrations and the support that's available, like beyond what you currently need. Because soon, after you've got your products and you've got your payment, then you're going to start wanting to try and integrate with couriers. And in the beginning, that's not always top of mind, but later you're like, I actually need that. And then you look at this number of like 300 plus e-commerce platforms, and barely any of them actually do that, because there's very few of them that are well supported in South Africa. So you mentioned Magento. Magento is fantastic, but it's for companies that have deep pockets and who are looking for ultimate customization. I paid 680,000 Rand for a Magento site, and I freaking hated it. And I've kind of bounced between all the different ones. I've tried many of them. But what I've found is that the ones that have all the boxes that I would look for, beyond adding your product and taking payment, the things like integrations with South African services, courier partners, like the third-party logistics warehouses, as well as a community of people in South Africa or from that company who can support you. It really is just, in my opinion, narrowed down to just two players for a startup. Because if you are a bigger company, you might look at Magento. For a startup, really all you want to consider is WooCommerce, which is built on WordPress, or Shopify. And you mentioned Shopify. So then if you're looking at those two, it comes down to like, well, which one would you want to go for? WordPress is free, which is amazing. That's a big box. That's a great big tick there. But it's also kind of difficult. It's kind of technical. And they have got much better with their onboarding. So like when you're setting it up, they've got these wizards, and you set it up and you're up and running pretty quickly. But running a WordPress site is kind of tricky. You've got all these plugins. If anybody here does WordPress, you know all about it. Like you've got to keep these things updated. Sometimes you push the updates and then your website breaks and you've got to rewind. And it's technical. So for anybody who's got like a technical background or some code history, that's perfect, because you can figure it out. And the thing is that you have to figure it out because there isn't a support base that you could reach out to. There isn't live chat, because WooCommerce is open source. It's owned by nobody. It's owned by everybody. So you've got to kind of figure it out, or reach out to blogs and communities where somebody might be able to help you. But it's free, so there's a big, big box. The other one being Shopify, it's not free, but it comes with a much easier user experience for you guys, like as a builder, because it's really intuitive. And there's also a live chat. So you've got these Shopify gurus who at any time you just click a box and you're chatting to somebody who can go into your website, assess your problems, help you out. And that's a big win, in my opinion, because when you are building a site, you're going to have challenges, you're going to have questions, and you've got somebody who can help you in real time. And then, of course, that one's not free. There is a price to pay for it. Everywhere in the world, it's $29 a month. But as of recently, they have very kindly reduced our price in South Africa to $19. So they've given us a preferential pricing. So that's made it way more affordable. And it just kind of depends where you sit. If you are technically based and you're looking for a free platform, absolutely WordPress. If you're willing to pay a little bit per month, then, and you're looking for the easier option, then Shopify.
And it's stable.
And it's stable, yes, let's not
never
forget
crashes,
that.
let's just say that. Black Friday, if I have mass input onto the site in terms of like the PS5 drop, it's never crashed at all. Yeah.
And that's a big deal.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, because it scales up and down as per your demand and that sort of thing. And I think, I mean, it's a great example of, certainly for early stage entrepreneurs. I mean, I like the fact that you've whittled it down to WordPress and Shopify, because it does tend, I mean, some people would prefer WordPress, depending on their customization and the kind of, I suppose, the aesthetic and the user interface that you'd like. But Shopify for a startup entrepreneur is ideal, right? So it's just a really, I mean, those are really good options that I think you can consider. So, in fact, before I ask the next question, I'm going to start warming up the crowd, because I do want to get one or two questions from you guys. So I'm going to challenge the online audience, first of all. So those of you who are patching in from social media and YouTube and so on, can you introduce yourselves, particularly in YouTube, if you can just say, hi, I'm from, wherever you're patching in from, and introduce yourself. And if you have a company, then mention your company. And then I'm going to ask our real live audience just to spend 15 seconds, please. Just introduce yourself to the next person who is next to you. So can you turn right now to the person next to you and introduce yourself? And go. The camera guy is next to you. There you go. You can introduce yourself to the camera guy. And I want to start getting people from the online audience as well. Cool. You actually got nervous at all. You actually doing flipping well. And I think, yeah, we're going to take some questions from the audience, but there's one or two, I think, that I want to ask first, and then we'll get to it, particularly around the challenges. Okay, thank you, guys. That's the next part of this is going to be to ask you guys in the audience and in the online audience to submit your questions. And obviously that gives you the opportunity just to remind you that we have two world-class individuals who are in the trenches right now, who are really at your disposal to answer the questions that are most salient to you. So we'll get to that in a second. I have just one other question that I want to ask to you. We're going to start with you, Nalisa, in terms of, and I mean, obviously, so the PlayStation is a worldwide brand, right? And you have, hundreds of millions of dollars from Sony that are doing a lot of the marketing work for you. So the demand is there. But I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you, where do you think the opportunities lie in South Africa for startup entrepreneurs? You can talk broadly, or you can talk in terms of anything that you might have thought of from a product perspective. Because I think it's kind of what the one lesson I've learned is, if you got the right product, you're pretty much 32 steps ahead of the pack, right?
I would disagree with you slightly there, and I'll tell you why from our experience, is even though we had a brand that's well known and, like you said, well advertised by
Sure.
Sony itself, in South Africa, the challenge we had, like the site went live, and we didn't get one sale. Even for a week, we just sat there and we're like, we're selling PlayStations and no one's buying it. And the issue was trust. So even though you have a brand that's well known, people didn't trust our site. They didn't know who Kudu was. They didn't trust us. They thought, is it a real site? Are we legit? Are we valid? Or are we going to steal their money? Because customers have gone through that. They've lost money due to fraud. So even though we had a great brand, we had no sales. And I would call Warrick as well. I'm like, there's nothing coming through, but we have a great brand.
Warrick, you promised us this would
Yes,
work, man.
you promised
I
us
want my
once it's
money
up,
back.
we will get sales. And it just didn't happen. And for me, that's why I said the easiest part was obviously building that site and having that brand, but it was getting customers to trust us and getting customers to try us out. And for us, we spent a lot of time making sure operations worked perfectly. We assessed the market in terms of delivery costs. That makes a difference when people are price checking on sites. You know, what is your delivery cost versus others, which is cheaper? The price of the product as well. So for us, what we decided to do was, let's go out to shows and let people see us and experience us. Because people didn't trust us at all. They didn't want to buy from us. They'd rather buy from a Takealot or Macro that they knew already.
Sure, of course.
So what we did is our first show that we attended was actually the Rand Easter show. Okay? And we thought, okay, let's just get the brand there, let people interact with us and get to know us. So no matter how much we would try and tell people that we are the sole distributors in SA, they didn't believe it. So we started off in our first year going to shows and trying to be at places where people could feel, touch, experience, talk to us. And that's what worked for us. And that's where we got people to sign up. And for me, the best way is to get people to sign up to your mailing list, because that's the only way you can keep in contact with them and you can continue to interact with them. Cell phone numbers for us generally doesn't work that great. Emails does. And so at each of these shows, we would give away a prize if you just signed up. So you didn't have to buy anything to win a prize. We would give away, for example, either a PlayStation. We had that product that was quite attractive, or it could have been as smallest thing as a headset. So we sign up. People love free things. Sign up, and you could win something. And once we got those email addresses, then we started marketing to them. And that's where we would either give them discounts off to try and experience it, or in our first month we did a free courier. So just try our services and start trusting us, and then that's how we built that trust. But a brand wasn't something that just worked.
Got it. So then, okay, I mean, just to quickly touch upon the question that I asked about, where do you see opportunities that you could maybe look at and see, well, that's something that might be nascent and that could be something interesting for...
Giving away my strategy right now.
Yeah, well...
Okay, in our environment and what we're looking at now, which is, we think is going to be quite big, and I don't know if anyone knows about it, but it's called NFTs, okay, within the cryptocurrency environment.
Non-fungible tokens, yeah.
Yes,
There's actually, by the way, for
tokens.
those interested, there's a recipe on NFTs on heavychef.com if you want to go and find out more.
Okay, so that's something that we think is going to be big. Everyone's talking about the meta universe. You know, even Facebook's now called Meta. So it's something that we're investigating. Yes, it may not be big, but if it is, we want to be the first in line to start that. So that's something that we're looking at.
Amazing.
Now. Yeah.
And we might just touch upon that a little bit later as well, because that's a super fascinating topic. Warrick, from your perspective, do you see any areas of, and again, it could be broad, it could be narrow, anything that you feel quite excited about in the e-commerce environment?
Yeah, so I can start answering that by saying what I see the biggest mistake a lot of people make when they're coming into e-commerce, which is to start a website with a whole bunch of different products, hoping that they will see which one sells the best and then narrow down on that one. But doing that means that you don't have any expertise, you don't have a niche, you don't have a product that you are focusing on and building a brand behind. And then customers land on that site and they kind of assume that you can't be an expert because you're just selling like everything from dog products to gaming to camping stuff and everything in between. And they quickly browse away from your site. Where I see the big opportunity for anybody, and this could be a big opportunity or a small opportunity, but the right way to approach e-commerce is to pick a niche and then to focus your website and your brand around that niche, so that when customers land on your site, they know that you're an expert in your product. For instance, you were talking about people buying PlayStations off Takealot and then calling your support team to help them get set up. Yes. So that's where they see you guys as the experts, but they should have bought from you in the first place. And luckily, you guys have the foresight to offer the customer service, knowing that they'll come back to you next time around. And the challenge or the problem with doing a whole bunch of products and just seeing what works is that nothing's really going to work, because customers aren't going to see you as being that expert, as being the niche, like having product expertise. In 2015, my company Action Gear, we won the award for, there used to be annual e-commerce awards. It doesn't happen anymore. But in 2015, we won the award for the best customer service in e-commerce in South Africa. Second place was Yappie Chef, third place was Takealot. And because they were
esteemed company indeed.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the awards haven't happened since, which means that I still have that trophy.
The reigning champion.
Yeah. And after we won that award, people came to me and they're like, "Oh, Warrick, that's a nice award to win.
Yeah.
Customer service award, that's nice." And I was like, "No, thank you, firstly, but that was our strategy. Offer excellent customer service," because one thing that I identified was that South Africans are just so used to getting really bad customer service. So if you go just a little bit above and beyond, they are blown away. They tell their friends they'll support you forever, and you build this army of raving fans. And they know that they can trust you, that they're going to get their questions will be answered, that they can reach out to you, and that you are experts in your niches. And a niche doesn't have to be like GoPro. A niche can be sports electronics, which is what Action Gear, my business, grew into. So we had everything from GoPros to drones and all the accessories, but night vision goggles and all these other sports electronics. And that was our niche. So a niche doesn't have to be one product range. It can be a range, but that's where you specialize. And when you specialize in that, then customers will choose you over Takealot, because when you are shopping for something, often you have questions, whether it's PlayStation or maybe like an SLR camera. You can look at it on Takealot, you can see the products that are available, but if it's an SLR camera, you probably have some questions, like which lens would work with this body, and which camera case should I get that's going to hold the camera body and the lens and the extras that I need. Like, do I need a spare battery? Do I not? I don't know. You're probably going to go down to your local camera store and ask them those questions and hopefully support them. So that's where Takealot is never going to be able to compete with small and growing businesses, because their call center, well, basically they don't actually advertise a phone number anywhere, because if you were to phone Takealot and ask them, hey, like, which camera should I choose and the camera bag and stuff, there's no ways that they can advise you on that. That's not their game. So where they fall short is customer service and product expertise, and that's where entrepreneurs can have a great opportunity to fall into a niche where hopefully it aligns with your passions, so that you very quickly just know all about your products and you can service your customers, you can build that army of raving fans, and that army of raving fans will support you forever.
That's a great answer, and it's such age-old wisdom, right? I mean, I read a book recently by Henry Ford, and right in the first chapter, he came out the gates, he was like, people are stupid about business, they're trying to make it complicated, and really at the bare bones basics of business, it's about service. And this is like 100 years ago, literally 100 years ago, right in 1922. You're saying business is service. You serve your customers, and you keep that at your center. That's your North Pole, your North Star, and that's essentially the thing that's going to keep you going. And I guess it still holds dear today. If you feel that you're looked after as a customer within a particular niche, then people are going to trust you. They're going to want to come back to you, and they're going to use you over the big, 800-pound gorilla who doesn't really care about you, has no customer interface, who actually tries to hide all the contact details just because they can't cope, So I'm going to ask the audience here. There's a couple of questions coming in from online. If you do have a question, just to put your hand up. And I won't be able to see you because there's a bigger spotlight in my eyes. So I'm going to ask Mo just to kind of, just to pass the microphone around. Okay, we're going to start with the online question, and then we'll get to a in-person question. I see you. And the first question is from Andrew. And I guess this is for you, Nalisa. Is it important to have a retail presence?
For us, like Warrick said, you must be an expert in your area, and it depends on the product you're selling. Okay, so I wouldn't say it's for everyone, but in terms of our product, yes. So if people want to experience it and feel it and see it, it is important, and I think that's what creates what we call the omni-channel, where they have different avenues of experiencing your product, but also they get to contact you. And it's a leg where they can talk to you as well. It's an additional leg. So for us in our business, like I said, it doesn't fit everyone. Retail is important. especially with the product, because they want to play it, they want to experience it before they purchase, because it's quite an expensive purchase as well. So yes, it works for some businesses, but not all of them. So it depends on the product that you're selling.
Sure. And I love the idea of focus, a focused product, as you've both been saying. There's so many ancillary benefits to that, right? The fact that, I mean, first of all, your SEO goes through the roof because you're continually hammering on that single topic. But then you start to see, from a social media perspective, that you become, the PlayStation person or the GoPro person, and you become the authority in that specific niche, right? So it just starts to scale almost organically, right?
Yes.
So we have a question in the audience. Would you mind stating your name and then the question, please?
Hi, so I'm Ayanda, and I think this is for Nalisa, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So you were talking a lot about trust. I'm one of those people who have like major trust issues when I'm buying something online. So what are some of the things that a website can have, like when you're developing a website, that can make your customer or your audience trust you more? Because sometimes I tend to find that when a website has, like, for instance, many different languages, it kind of puts me off a little bit. I'm like, oh my gosh, can I really trust them, or are they gonna just take my money? So what are some of the things that one can look out for in a website that can make the customer trust that website even more?
For us, what worked really well is having the online chat. So our online chat is not a bot. It's actual people sitting behind it. So when a customer comes on, the first thing, sometimes they just say hi, and they don't expect a response. And then we actually have people that saying, hi, how can I help you today? What product are you looking for? And sometimes they're just chatting about, okay, I'm looking for an adventure game, for example. What would you suggest? So that works really well in terms of building trust, is that the customer wants to be able to contact you and talk to someone. They don't want to talk to a bot, and they don't want to just send an email and get a response in 48 hours. They actually want to speak to people, and that built trust. Secondly, like I said, we went and became physically visible at shows where people knew we existed. So we weren't just this online store that popped up out of nowhere, but then we started also posting on our websites, we're going to be at the show, come and meet us. We're going to be at the show, come and talk to us about a product that you want or experience our products. And I think that's what customers want. They want to interact with you and get a response, and that's what builds trust. And to take it to the next level is to make sure that your processes are in place where, for example, returns is an issue. Customers will buy from you, and then after that, they get really upset if your returns policy is not great. So in terms of the whole process, make sure there are people there to respond, at least at the initial onset. After that, you can add in, for example, FAQs and all of that, where people can go and easily find it. But at the beginning, they want to speak to you. So make yourself as available as possible. Even a phone number so they can call you. I know a lot of people say, oh no, but we don't have enough people to answer calls. It's that in our business, it's not like we have an area that only answers calls. Everyone will answer a customer query. So if everyone shares that load, it works. The customers just want to hear you, and that's what builds trust. They want to know you exist.
That's a good answer. Thank you. By the way, we have somebody from Rwanda in the audience. Ola from Rwanda. That's amazing. And we have another question from the online audience. This is from Jay or Jess. Please, this is for you, Warrick. Please tell us about. We had on the slides a slide about the 5-day challenge. So can you just give us a quick introduction to what that is and how people can get involved?
Yeah, thank you. Great question. It sounds like we planted that question, but
teed you up.
Yeah, thanks. So the 5-day challenge is something that I do once a year. It's free coaching, and it's happening next week. So from Monday to Friday, we do. I'm doing a live coaching. It's all online, and over those 5 days, I teach people how to build their own e-commerce store. So it's something that seems quite daunting. That maybe you feel like you want to get into e-commerce, but you wouldn't know where to start with hiring an agency to do it for you, or whether you could do it yourself. You can do it yourself using Shopify, and it's way easier than people think. And so in the 5-day challenge, I guide people through the process of registering the store, adding products, setting up payments, designing the store, and making it live, which seems kind of difficult. But I iron out all the crinkles for you. Like, we've got suppliers set up, so if you don't have products, we've got you covered. If you don't have a payment gateway, you don't even know where to start, like PayFast has come on board with an amazing discount for everybody who goes through the process. And then designing the store seems difficult and complicated, but as you can attest, it's easier than you might think, and I'll show everybody how. And how they can register for the 5-day challenge. I think you guys have a QR code or a link that was sent out. So you can just click that link and you can register. It's all for free. And it's 5 days through next week, but it's not full 5 days. It's half an hour a day. So we're going to crush it. Like, it's jam-packed full of information, half an hour a day over 5 days. And at the end of the week, if you follow along, you would have actually built your own online store. And not just any old store, but you've got products that are ready to sell, your payment's set up, it looks really good, it's online, like you've actually created an online business for yourself, like a new way of generating an income, which is really cool. And then even if you just want to tag along and see how it all works, you also learn a skill that empowers you to be able to start a business at any time. Because maybe you don't have an idea of a business right now, but in 6 months' time or next year you will. And going through the 5-day challenge teaches you that you can build your own store. You absolutely can, and I'll show you guys how.
Amazing. And just for everybody in the audience here, we're going to put the QR code on the screens later on. And I'm going to ask Bronwyn, who is looking after the online audience, just to get the link. You can get it from Jojo Bronwyn, and just put it in the chat. That would be great. So you can sign up. Okay, so there's a few more questions. I think there was one in the. Oh, there we go. We've got a question in the in-person audience.
Hi there, my name's Julia. I own a business called DNMK Esports, so very much on what you guys are doing with e-commerce, I sort of deal with the people that are buying from you. So we're more sort of in the space of community building and brand building and, you know, enjoying the products that you guys are selling. And I guess my question is, in the topic of sort of talking about, you know, I love all the buzzwords has been throwing around, like niche and, you know, all these cool words, because it's very much stuff that revolves around my world. But the question is, how do you go about with your e-commerce site finding the communities that you're hoping to sell to and sort of building that marketing strategies around it? Because I believe that is very important to you guys. And obviously this is a bit of a selfish question because, you know, ultimately we would love to work with brands like you guys. So how do you sort of go about finding that niche and interacting with that niche, even though necessarily you can't always have the hands-on experience at expos, at events? So what is the strategies that you can follow in that space? And also, how do you keep up with that, with the ever-changing world of technology?
Can I go? Yep. Okay, I think within our area, and like what Warrick says, when you're opening up your own e-commerce site or any business that, for that matter, look at what your core skill is first. Because if you're just going to go and try and find anything to sell, is that it's not going to work because you're not an expert at it. So within our area, we're experts at gaming and gaming distribution. So for us to open up an e-commerce site based on that product was easy for us. We knew the product. It was getting people to trust us. But we knew the communities as well. So I think we wouldn't have done it if we didn't know where to look and where to go. So we knew the shows that we would go to find those customers. So I would say do a lot of research first to find where those communities are. And now with digital, they're online. And they're much bigger than before. So it's like going onto your Facebooks, identifying where those communities sit, because we've identified gaming communities on Facebook, and then start chatting to them, getting involved in that. Even Twitter works really well, I must say. So find those niche digital areas and then partner with people in those areas. That works really well. And it's within our expertise in terms of how we talk to them.
Warrick?
Yeah, let me, you know, Julia, you've said that your question is quite a selfish one, but really it speaks to the challenge that everybody here would have. Like you said, you know, you built an amazing website, you made it live, and then you had no sales. And there's trust, but trust only is a secondary thing to traffic. If you don't have anybody visiting your store, you can't expect any sales. It's like opening up a brick and mortar store in Sandton City and not having anybody walk in the door. You just can't expect any sales. You've got to get visitors, and you've got to get a lot of visitors, because the conversion rate in a physical store, you know, there's people who walk in, like pick something up, put it down, walk out. That's always going to happen. But the conversion rate in this shop is actually quite a lot higher than e-commerce. In fact, with e-commerce in South Africa, the average conversion rate is about 1.5%. So for every 100 visitors you get like 1, maybe 2 sales. And that's quite complicated. Well, it's quite tricky because your question is like, how do you find your community? How do you find your people? And that's a question that every website owner has a challenge with. Like, how do you find the right people that you can advertise to get them to your site so that they can get sales? Because if you know that for every 100 visitors you can get 1 or 2 sales, if you want to have a successful business, you need thousands and thousands of visitors to your site. So you've got to find them online and then advertise to them. Your question isn't a selfish one at all because it's such a broad challenge. And the answer isn't an easy one because it's identifying, the first step is about, as you've said, identifying who your people are, like who's your ideal customer avatar. And then where's that person hanging out online? Are they in Facebook groups? Are they on specific forums? Are they on Instagram? Are they on Pinterest? And you need to test all these different platforms so that you can have the information, like the data from those tests to figure out what's working for you and what's not. And then as soon as you find them, like maybe it's Instagram, maybe it's on Pinterest, and as soon as you find your people, then you just double down and you just advertise the heck to them, bring them in, get them on your database, email them, and create a loyal fan base.
Just keep communicating with them.
By the way, I'm the world's biggest email fan. It's like the OG of marketing, you know? It's just so flippin' useful. Because the reality is everybody talks about social media and, you know, paid advertising, getting onto, you know, other media portals. But the email database, you own that. You can, you know, it's people who are giving you permission to contact them, which is just gold. It's absolute gold. And to get into a rhythm and flow of contacting people at a consistent time, at a, you know, on a consistent date, and just on a consistent day in the week, and just providing value is just an absolute killer strategy to get people onto your site. And I know some of the biggest platforms in South Africa today use email as their #1 strategy to driving traffic, and they see it immediately as a huge spike in sales after they send out a mail blast, right?
Can I just to re-emphasize what you've said there, it's like you own that. And it's really the only digital asset that you can own, that you can control. You know, years ago, people focused on getting likes on their Facebook page. You got like 1 million likes, you thought you were made for life, and then Mark Zuckerberg is like, no, we're not doing that anymore.
You're going to spoil your party. Yeah.
But your email database, if you build it and you're using MailChimp and then you don't like MailChimp anymore, you own it. So you can export there and go to Klaviyo or whichever one you want. But it's really the asset that gives you longevity in your digital business.
And also we find that you send out a mail, you get sales instantly because those customers are actually signed up to get your mail. They want to see what you have and they're interested in buying. So that really works well for us.
It's a beautiful community builder, right? We're going to talk a little bit more in detail about some of the tactics and tips to growing and maintaining your audience and your community. But I've got a question from online from Nikelo Jame. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's a question for Warrick. So Nikelo asks, which 2 platforms would you recommend for a startup that wants to build a multi-vendor marketplace? On the spot.
Okay, so building a multi-vendor marketplace is something that a lot of people want to do. It's a very attractive model because...
Maybe explain what it is to everybody.
All right, so you would create a platform. Okay, let me actually explain it in like a real life example. Like you would be renting a field and then hosting a flea market. Like you're the guy who's controlling, you're the person who's controlling the landscape, and then you get sellers to come and set up, and then you get customers to come and buy from them. And you can use platforms like WordPress, you can use Magento, there are custom built, there's specific platforms for it. But before I answer that, let me just go off on a little bit of a tangent here to explain that building a marketplace, while it's very appealing to create a landscape where other people do all the work, it's very complicated and there's very little companies who actually have success here. And in the real world example of having a flea market, you could have a flea market and you could have a whole bunch of sellers come there, set up their gazebos, put their products on their tables, they've taken their Saturday morning out, and they're enthusiastically there. But if those sellers don't have enough customers coming into the flea market and there's not enough sales, the next week they're not going to want to come back. The next time you host that flea market, they're not going to come back. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is like if you had very few sellers, but you managed to get a lot of customers who came to your flea market, the customers would walk in, they would, within a few minutes, they've gone past all the stores, they're bored, they leave, they're not going to come back the next time you do it. And so for a marketplace to work, it needs both. And Jeff Bezos explains this in his concept, which he calls the flywheel effect, where you have to have lots of products, which comes from lots of sellers. The lots of products bring in, you bring customers to that, and then the customers are happy with their product selection, so they buy. Then the purchasing brings in more sellers, which brings in more products, which brings in a wider selection, which brings in more customers, and it becomes this flywheel. And if it's not done correctly, then you get these false starts where you get lots of customers to come to your marketplace, but you don't have enough vendors. Or you get a lot of vendors and you don't have enough customers. And in order to get a marketplace done correctly, you have to go big. You cannot do it organically. You cannot do it on a small budget. You have to go billboards. You have to go above the line marketing, TV, radio, everything. And I see so many people trying to start marketplaces because it's a very appealing business model. You create the flea market and then everybody else does the work. But it's not easy. And it requires a lot of capital to be done correctly. So that's the preface to my answer, which is that you can use WordPress as the most affordable option. And then there are custom-built softwares that you can explore later, but those also come at a high cost to be able to build the functionality.
It's something that we've actually spoken about at Heavy Chef a number of times, about the platforms that you create, particularly for multi-vendors. It's such a difficult thing to build from the start because of those two target audiences, right? You got to keep your vendors happy and you got to keep your customers happy. And it's like taking on double the job. Entrepreneurship is hard out of the gate, and now you're making it twice as hard for yourself. On the flip side, though, if you get it right, then you've built a moat for yourself. Because it's so difficult, other people will find it very challenging to compete with you, right? So yeah. So I think there's another question from online, but Mo, do we have a question here in the audience? There we go.
My name is Tular Mataba. I'm here with PH. We're from BC.
Welcome.
So we're a clothing brand. And I guess a lot of the questions I've written, you guys have answered, so thank you. But the only one that I've got left is the struggle that we are facing, which is, do I set up the store? Do I set up all the infrastructure, right, for an e-commerce site to sell when my product isn't ready yet, right? Because sometimes there's that myth that I can get everyone to pre-purchase. And it's a very tantalizing myth, right? I get your money up front and then I'll deliver it to you later. So is it a worthwhile thing to pursue, or should we get all the product up front first and then drive the e-commerce site in order to sell the product? Because it feels like either way, we're not afraid of the work, but it's really just trying to find out which one's the best, because there's always that fear that someone's going to spring up and catch you while you're sleeping, because you have to raise capital, you have to get the product to you, and there's all those complexities. But at the same time, you're trying to create market presence, which we feel we're really good at. But again, it's that thing. The product needs to come. Do I wait for it, or do I launch? So for example, the 5-day sprint next week, I've signed up for it. And at the end of that, we're going to be sitting with an e-commerce site. But our product is still coming because we've got it somewhere where it's being produced.
So my short answer would be yes, every single time, but let me explain why. The thing is that when your product arrives, there's multiple angles here, but like when your product arrives, you're going to be so busy trying to get sales that then at that stage to build a website it's a lot of work. But the real reason that I suggest doing it sooner rather than later is because a site is always going to be a work in progress. It's never a case where you kind of do the work and you shut down your computer and you're like, cool, we're done. You never get there. But it's also important to notice, like you mentioned SEO earlier, and one of the ranking factors of how your site is going to be ranking in Google in the future is the age of the site, like when it went live. So the earlier, the better. And what you can do is you can start to drive traffic to that. So when you're handing out cards or when you're talking about it, you can get people to follow your socials, to get on that site, to opt into your email list, and you can put pre-orders there because that is the magic. But really, ultimately, what you'd want to do is opt in or ask people as a call to action to opt in on the waiting list so that when your products arrive, you have 10 people or 100 people or 10,000 people that you can email and say, we've got product. Do you want it right now? And that's going to be a powerful thing for you.
I was going to say the same. For us, what really works well is saying, sign up to be the first to know. And that creates a lot of hype where people just want to be the first to know, even if they may not buy, but they want to be the first to know that it's there. So you could start the website, but just have that. Even if it's images or just giving them teasers of what it might look like, just to keep interest of them coming to the site so you build your SEO. And then sign up to be the first to know. That generally works really well. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. And there's a few more questions from the online. We got one from Zola Takiso. And I suppose for both of you, what are some of the key things you need to look out for in terms of safety and security as an e-commerce business? So,
are they talking from a payment perspective?
I imagine so.
Yes.
In terms of, I suppose, fraud, I mean, I guess that's the big question, right? And I mean, we kind of touched upon it there about the trust factor. And particularly, I mean, Zola's question is actually is actually a really good one in terms of, in this day and age, in this environment, trust is like, it's nowhere, right? So who do we trust? How do we, everybody is, trust is at an all-time low across the board. So I would imagine from credit card fraud and that sort of stuff, how do you bypass those fears and how do you look after people's safety and security?
From our end, the one thing we always communicated from day one, like Warrick says, you bring on a partner that does those security checks, like PayFast, for example. So we do not capture, we always tell our customers from day one, I don't capture any of your details. And that really helps, because they'll call in and say, please, can you help me through the payment process? And then we tell them, okay, then you're going to leave the site and you're going to a third party, which is PayFast. And that's where you're going to get your OTP. Our banks in South Africa are really good at that, where you get an OTP and then you transact there. So I think make it very clear to your customers that we do not capture any details of customer cards. And especially when they call you and they want to go through that process, that helps a lot in terms of building trust with the customer that you're not going to take their details. And when they see they're going into a third-party payment gateway, that already builds trust if they know a PayFast. For example, a PayPal, a Zapper, a MobiCredit. They're more comfortable using those payment methods versus you having it, which I don't think any site has anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose maybe just there's two other angles to answer that question in terms of the site security. So if you are a website owner, how do you secure the site? If you're on Shopify, it's done for you. If you're on other platforms, just make sure that your SSL certificate is up to date. The easiest way to check that is if you click the link, your URL at the top of the screen, it needs to say HTTPS.
The little S.
The S, that's it. So if you're ever shopping online and you want to know if the site is secure, just click the URL and see if it's secured or not. If it's not, leave the site immediately. Never type your credit card details into that site. But there's another angle also, like if you're an e-commerce business owner, how do you protect yourself from fraudulent customers? This one hurts me because I've been taken so many times. Like, I had to learn the hard way. It's kind of like why Insaka exists, to like help people not to get defrauded, or to learn all the lessons that I had to learn the hard way. And one of the things is to let your payments go through the payment gateway. You might get a customer who says, can I pay by EFT, send you my PDF proof of payment and come and collect immediately? That one, I fell for that so often. But you get a customer, you want to help people out. So just make sure that the payment is cleared in your bank and done, or it's been approved by a third-party payment gateway like PayFast, just to protect yourself. And if anybody phones you with an urgent order where they need to collect and they're giving you a proof of payment, do not accept it.
That's a great answer. And I think what's really cool nowadays, and what has evolved and changed since, particularly from my days of building those big cumbersome Magento sites and WooCommerce sites and some of the hand-coded sites that we built in the digital agency days, is that now there's almost like these linked microservices, right? So you have WordPress, and you've got Shopify, you've got PayFast, and it all, Xero, some of our partners like Xero, PayFast, Capitalize, they all speak to each other. They're all linked. All the APIs are already done for you. So even if you are not a techie, you showed this, right? You can still build your own site from scratch and be able to make a world-class e-commerce presence that will start attracting customers and providing that trust that we've spoken about. We have another question in the audience.
My name is Hopewell Mbonambi, founder of Spotcoin Coupons. We deal with the global market of spot bets. So what we do, we sell vouchers. But the problem is, the question goes to both of you. When it comes to gateway payments, I've been having a problem with my market. It's more global than local, but I was forced to focus on local clients because when it comes to payments, I'm having a problem with PayPal. So since you touched on NFTs and digital currencies, I was like, maybe there is a payment that more trustworthy you can refer to.
I know recently they do have the cryptocurrencies that is a plugin that you can accept that now, but it all depends on the platform that you're selling on as well. So if you look at PayFast, they do allow where you can allow international cards as well, but they have the built-in securities there. But I know with vouchers with us as well, is that fraud does slip through, especially with international cards. They don't have OTPs, they don't have that third-party secure. So that's going to happen, but what we build in on vouchers, for example, if the same IP address is hitting the site within a minute, 5 transactions, stop it, you know? So it, again, those are securities you can put in, but it depends on the site that the platform you're working off. For us, that's what works better, yeah.
I know PayFast is a sponsor here. I love them, I use them. But for you, I would actually suggest an alternative. Okay. So, you know, PayPal is something that is widely accepted elsewhere in the world. But South African customers don't actually use PayPal too often. Maybe people in this room, most of us would have a PayPal account, but we don't use it all that often. Sure. PayPal's really expensive, and it's hard to get your money. You've got to use FNB, and they charge a flipping fortune to get your money out. So for you, you could look at a payment gateway, a South African one, which is a sister company to PayFast. It's called PayGate. And the reason that I recommend that one in particular is because what you could do is you could use a currency converting app on any website where a user, depending on their IP address, it changes the currency. And I can't really see you at all. So excuse me if I'm doing this. But you can use these currency switching apps. So if the customer's in South Africa, they see your coupons, they see it in rands. And if they're outside of South Africa, then it changes to USD. But with PayFast or other payment gateways, what happens is the customer who sees it in USD, they add it to their cart, they get to the final payment process, and it switches back to rands. And an American customer doesn't know what ZAR is, and they get freaked out, they leave. Whereas PayGate, they can allow the customer to go all the way through the payment process and pay in the currency that you've predetermined. So the basic way you would want to set that up is anybody with an IP address based in South Africa, they see rands, they pay rands. Anybody who's not in South Africa, they see dollars, they pay dollars. And then that money actually arrives to you in rands. So PayGate would actually be the one to use. Thank you.
We got a bunch of questions from the online audience, and there's one from Ansel from Skalkvik, and another one from Aya Africa. So I'm going to ask these two in quick succession, and I think they're quite fun questions actually. The one is it important to bring the excitement and the experiences of a physical shop to the online shop, and how do you do that?
Well, just an example of ours, which it's really important to do that, especially with the audience that you're talking to in the gaming industry. And it's finding the right talent that does it. So our marketing manager, and a shout out to her, really talented on Facebook and stuff. Something for Easter this year, instead of doing, everyone does Easter egg, you know, find the golden egg on the site. She did an Easter egg hunt on the site, where it started off on social, which is on Facebook, and then they had to come to the site and they had to navigate to find clues to end up with a prize at the end. And they had to sign up, obviously, to our mailing list. And that just created excitement on the site, which was as big as a PS5 drop for us. And a PS5 drop is big, and that's the same amount of traffic that we got on site just with a quiz hunt. And so there are things that you can do on an e-commerce site that creates that excitement, but you need to know your audience and know what is going to bring that excitement to them from our end.
Yeah, absolutely, I love that actually. And you know, Yappie Chef is the best example in South Africa of an online store who then went retail and gave a in-store experience that felt like online, but they were very early to recognize the importance of web rooming and the opposite web. web rooming is where somebody looks online and then wants to go and pick something up and pick it up and hold it before purchasing. But the opposite is showrooming, where somebody looks in store and then goes and they want to buy online. Maybe give it some thought, maybe check some prices. And if you aren't offering both scenarios, then you're losing out on customers. But an earlier question was whether you kind of need a physical store to support your e-commerce store. And that's a big ask for somebody who's starting out, like, geez, now I need a physical store, because the online store you can start on a shoestring budget. A physical store, you've got to sign a 12-month lease, you've got to hire people, you've got to fill the shelves with stock. It's a big investment. And so the wonderful thing with e-commerce is that you can absolutely start online. And just like you guys, you've later rolled out your stores, just like Yuppie Chef. They had success online, then they went in store. But if you can offer both, and if you can give a web rooming and showrooming experience, the omni-channel, then that's the ultimate.
It's a great answer. Interestingly, my digital agency team, back in the day when Exclusive Books first launched their online store, right? And they were competing against, at the time, Kalahari, and it was, that's like that was then the big 800-pound gorilla, which became Takealot, or merged with Takealot. So we had to launch it and do something super fun to kind of marry or merge the excitement of the online stores to the offline stores, to the online stores. So what we did is we created something called Flash Mob Fire Sale, and we created a campaign that won like a ton of awards because it was so flippant successful that they couldn't actually cope. They had to turn off the campaign. We had to switch it off because there were too many people getting online. And the basic mechanic of the campaign that my team and I put together for exclusives was essentially just to say, we will hide a couple of products, a few books and a few games, the physical games for Sony PlayStation and so on the store at a particular time during the week. But you have to join the community, you have to sign up, and we will tell you, and there's an hour period where we'll give you the links to go and find it in amongst all their SKUs and whatnot. And so you'd had to be part of the community. And then as soon as it came on, we would say there's an hour period where you've got like a redonkulous discount. So we'd give them a certain book that they had a lot of stock in, or a game that they had a lot of stock in at like 10% of the price, right? And it completely blew the store up. So they did something like, it was 1,000% on their overall revenue just in the first month because, it was so much excitement. So there are, I guess, to your point of Easter eggs and little ways that you can do online that are really powerful for, that you can't actually do in the in-store environment. Okay, so we're going to go to the next question quickly. That's online. Then we're going to take some questions from the in-person audience. I see you guys in the back there. So this is a question from Aya Africa, which I know well. Aya.Africa is a crazy awesome platform, actually, a multi-vendor platform, which I encourage everybody to go and check out, Aya.Africa. And they've asked, I think, a really important question for right now. How are we going to play when Amazon comes into South Africa? So both of you, you can start, Nalisa.
Okay, we just had this discussion outside. Obviously, that's the gorilla in the room in terms of Amazon coming into the country. Again, Amazon is massive. They sell everything, okay? So they're going to compete on price. But if you're the expert in your area, customers going to come to you for that advice because they need to contact someone. I can't emphasize the importance of that customer interaction, especially on a specialized store. So don't try and compete with the big gorilla and sell everything. Sell what you know and what you're an expert at, because that's the customer service that you're going to give, and that's why they're going to keep coming back to you to purchase from you and buy from you. Yeah.
And to leverage them wherever you can. Because like my ideal strategy for anybody would be to have your own store where you build your own following, your own database, your own pixel history, your own army of raving fans. And then where you can find your customers, like I said earlier, if your customers are available on different channels, put your products in front of them. And those channels also extend to the likes of Takealot, Bid or Buy, One Day Only, and soon to be Amazon, Because you can, as we all know, it's a marketplace where we can list our products on Amazon and sell it there. But importantly, when Amazon comes, which should be about March or April next year, then those who get in early, this is really a case where the early bird's going to get the worm, because two of the important factors of how products rank according to the Amazon algorithm is your sales velocity and your reviews. And the only way to get those two things is to get sales and then to get reviews. But the earlier you can get on Amazon, the less competition there's going to be, and you can start to build that sales velocity and you can start to build the reviews. And if you can get 25 positive reviews on your product on Amazon, it's very hard for anybody to ever compete against you to get control of that buy box on that page. And so the early bird's going to get the worm. Like, you really want to jump on that. I'm working with our next level guys. 2 of them are here in the back. And like, when Amazon comes, we are going to be ready to just jump on there, like hit the ground running, and to leverage it. Because it's not, you can look at it as the biggest competitor that's ever come into the market, or you can look at it as a great opportunity. But the other thing that's also important to recognize is that companies like Takealot and Amazon are doing us all such a big favor. They are growing the market for us, because customers like who don't trust online shopping, I know, maybe do you shop on Takealot? Okay. So this is amazing, because you might not trust shopping on smaller websites, but you trust shopping on Takealot because they've built the brand, they've got all these motorbikes driving around, your friends have shopped, they received their products, and so you trust it. And you shop on Takealot enough times and you love the convenience, and soon enough you start looking at other stores and you trust the process. And maybe you land on a site where you're not familiar with it, but you trust that if I put my credit card details into the site was secure and the product's going to arrive, and if it doesn't, I've got to fall back because I'll get refunded from the bank. And the likes of Takealot and soon to be Amazon are actively growing the customer base for all of us, and it's growing the number of customers that we can access in the future. So yes, they are a big competitor, but they're also serving us and growing the opportunity for everybody. And you know, the old saying of like a rising tide raises all ships, this is certainly going to be a case of that.
We've got 1 or 2 questions in the back there. Where's Mo? I can't see Mo. There we go. Okay, cool. And we are almost out of time. So we are going to be wrapping up quite soon. So we've got 1 or 2 more questions, and then I have a prize to give away. So over to you.
Okay, my name is Pindile. The question I want to ask, the minute you introduce these coupons and everything, how do you manage the traffic? Because you're going to get a lot of traffic.
In terms of digital codes being sent. So again, for me, if I can answer that, it depends on the platform you're using. So the platform automatically generates those codes. So you're not creating it. So once the order comes through, it automatically sends a code to the customer. So you're not physically doing it all the time.
Next question.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Nomvula Qaba. I'm from Kernes Enterprise. So I'm feeling like I'm lost because I'm doing services. I'm not selling any products. So I want to understand how can I enter the commerce space as I'm doing the services. I'm not selling a tangible product.
That's a great question, and I'm pretty sure Warrick is going to answer that pretty straight up.
Well, I would like to ask you, what services are you offering?
Okay, my company is doing company registrations, company compliance, SARS services. Yeah. Okay,
so I was hoping for an easier one. In our community of students, we've got a lot of service providers who are like physiotherapists or doctors or chiropractors or something where you're offering a service and you have a number of customers that you're dealing with, and the question to ask yourself is like, the customers that you're dealing with, your database, are there products that they are buying? Is there stuff that they need to buy that maybe you're recommending to them? So in the example of like a physiotherapist, the customers come to them and then leave, and with the physio's advice, they're probably going to go buy like a stretching band and some nutrition and a foam roller and a yoga mat or something like that. And it's an absolute no-brainer for that physiotherapist to add an online store element to their booking system online and just to sell those products. Because if you're recommending to your customers to go and buy these products, why send them to Sportsman's Warehouse or somewhere else to buy them? You can sell them yourself. And we've got so many people who are doing that successfully. So for yours, I said it's not as easy, and I just say that because in my mind, nothing jumps to my mind of like what physical products you could sell to that database. But if I'm just spitballing here, somebody who's registering their documents online, they might also be a customer for a service like Q4U or something like that. And perhaps you could get an affiliate link and you can recommend other related services and sell that and make money off the back of it. Or if you have a database of customers, you can find products that you think they might be interested in, sell it to, or you could go completely left field and find something else, something that you're personally passionate about, and start an online store and then start selling that.
Okay, thank you.
It's a good answer to a tough question. I want to add just one other thing that you could potentially look at. Nowadays, it's becoming easier and easier, and a form of e-commerce would be to sell instructions. So some form of instructional course on how to do the things that you are actually serving up to your customers. There's a bunch of, I know Warrick and I are huge fans of a framework. It's what's called an LMS, a learning management system called KOODOO. However, it's quite expensive, and there are some that are very plug and play. I'm sure you know a lot more than I do, but like things like Podio. There's LearnDash, which is a WordPress derivative, which is absolutely great. There's a lot of learning management systems that will allow you, simply with a phone camera and a decent, space with some good lighting, for you to share your knowledge and to charge for it, and to be able to say, well, you could use all the same mechanisms that we've used, that Nalisa and Warrick have spoken about, on how to set up an e-commerce store, as to how to set up your own learning management system, and to sell courses on how to do company registration and all those services that you've mentioned. And speak to Warrick afterwards, because he is the world heavyweight champion of that stuff. So I think there's a good few tips that you could derive from Warrick, and a bunch of online resources if you just do a cursory Google search. Okay, good question. Thank you for that. We have come to the end of our session today, ladies and gents. So before I close up, I'm just checking from my team on who the winner is. And the winner is Tulare Matlaba, the owner of Makepsi. Is that an online question? There we go. Yes, there is. Okay. Congratulations. I will give you your prize straight after this. Well done. Good question. And then just a huge thank you to our two guests tonight. You guys were amazing. Really, really composed and confident about your answers, and just a lot of value to all the community of entrepreneurs who are changing our world. And I think just a huge thank you for contributing and sharing your knowledge. And well done on the successes that you have achieved to date, and may there be many more. So can we give our two guests a rousing applause? Thank you. And then just a last thank you to everybody on the online audience, and to everybody who here tonight. Thank you for coming out, supporting Heavy Chef. Thank you for being with us. I encourage everybody to stick around, at least those in person, to network, to have a glass of wine or some good leaf CBD water or some surf fruit juice in the back there, and introduce yourselves to everybody else and see if you can get some connections, channels to market, some advice, and just some good old-fashioned friendship from this community, which is just one of the most amazing communities that I've ever had the privilege of working with. Thanks to the partners, thanks to the team. Thank you to Black Maverick, Paul, Massimo, and the crew, who are just doing an amazing job. To Justin, if you ever need any technical services or video services, these are the dudes to speak to. They're absolutely amazing. And I've just got a message from Bronwyn saying the production online is really good. So well done to everybody. Thank you, and we'll chat by the bar. Thank you.
Licky, 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 bum, bum. Shooby, dooby, 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 dum, dum. I say heavy chef. A one, a two, a three. Licky, 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 bum, bum. Shooby, dooby, 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 da, da. I say heavy chef, I say heavy chef, I say heavy chef, I say heavy chef. Licky, 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 bum, bum. Shooby, dooby, 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 da, da. I say heavy chef, I say heavy chef, I say heavy chef, I say heavy chef. There is love hidden in your heart. I keep it steady, there are plenty things to like. Don't feel angry about yourself when you feel down. There is light in your heart, just keep it bent, 'cause we were born to love. Oh, we were born to love. Oh, we were born to love. Oh, we were born to love. We were born to love. Love. Oh, we were born to love. Oh, we were born to love. Oh, we were born to love.